Rabbi Mordecai here, and we're on part 3 of building a new spiritual economy. And in these classes, we're going off of the premise of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who gives a projection of the future in his amazing Sefer Likutei Moharan. And he says that in the end of days, there won't be business. Business will be all gone during the times of Mashiach and this whole reality, and even the building towards Mashiach, business and everything as we know it will basically fall to the wayside. He said, because the whole context, and he's looking at life and reality in this expanded format, right? So, for example, in my book, Mind of the Black Jew, I talk about in chapter 2, this idea of like how the human eye only sees 1% of reality. And then there's a 99% reality that's happening all around us. And the human eye doesn't necessarily see, and it just kind of like absorbs these light particles and projects images inside of our brain. And that's kind of like how we experience reality. And our 5 senses kind of like make sense of different, experiential changes that we have. And that's part of this kind of like reality that, we see, right? That's science's understanding. I have, another understanding, which is this idea that, when we were born as children, there's an angel that comes to us. So it's not really my idea. There's an angel that comes to us and teaches us the entire Torah in our mother's womb, right? It teaches the entire Torah. The Torah teaches us about good and bad. It teaches us about the sky, the stars, the moon, the sun, the trees, the angels. It tells us that, right? Because it teaches us the entire Torah. It teaches us the Kabbalah. It teaches us the Drash, the Rimus, in the Peshat, right? It teaches us all of it when in our mother's womb. So we know all the dimensions and everything of reality, and that's why we're born. We see what we see. Right. And the more that we go on the path of holiness, we're able to reveal more of that inner knowledge. Right. God forbid that every university taught every student and said, hey, you have all the knowledge that you seek already inside of you, and you have to go through a process of transformation, of growth, and expansion to be able to connect to this inner knowledge, right? And it's about your character, and it's about how you treat people and how you treat nature and how you treat yourself, and you're voted towards Hashem and your kavana towards Hashem, right? And so in that way, you unpeel the whole university system will fall at the wayside. Why do I need to go? Oh, I need to get a job. You're right, my bad. Right? So I need to go to this university so I could figure out the skill sets that are needed in the marketplace that are current. Okay, I'm okay with that. That's fair, that's honest. But when you tell me it's a place of higher education, when you tell me it's a place that I'm going to blossom and become this greater person, and part of my life purpose is to go to this school and receive this information, when you tell me that that's not honest. Right? That's misleading. But you know what? You can't be upset with the entities that are involved, the people, the teachers, the students, the faculty community, because we live in a physical reality that has to only give us a small percentage of the light that we desire. Because Hashem wanted us to reveal through life the rest of that light that we desire through connection to Hashem. So the physical world that's around us is mundane experience. It's limited by the 5 senses. Is a manifestation of lack, right? And the completion of this is what we contribute through our bechira, through our free will, through our kavana. So when Rabbi Nachman says that the whole world is going to cease to want to do business as we know it today, because business itself represents 2 different desires, we have to look at what we're talking about from an expanded consciousness, right? We're talking about something that's not physical, right? We're not talking about anything physical. So there's 2 non-physical components that are driving 2 people, right? One person has a desire to sell, and another person has a desire to buy. And that desire to sell is connected to a whole world of relationships and partnerships and protocols and different mechanisms to get that product, and the whole sales mechanism there. And in order for the person to be in a place to have the kalim to receive, to buy, to purchase, what someone is selling is connected to a whole set of other mechanisms of buying, of credit, of money, of working, and bank deposits, and all these different dynamics, right? So these are two worlds that consist at the same exact time. And what Rabbi Nachman says, that those worlds are going to start to become one. The closer and closer we're going to get to Mashiach, the more and more the space and the separation that we have in our intellect in terms of desire is going to become smaller and smaller. And we're going to be more clear and more concise on what our needs are. And as the more clear and the more concise we are with our needs, the more we're going to integrate into one desire. Because the true reality is that the unity, the oneness of humanity with me and my fellow man, that oneness, that connection brings the ultimate pleasure. But there's a cloak, right? There's a cloak. There's a cloak that tells us that, hey, it says, hey, you know what? You want to become a billionaire, right? And you're like, oh, you know what? You want to be able to buy whatever you want. But the reality is, you just want to be comfortable. You want to feel safe. You want to feel, protected. You want to feel a sense of honor. You want to feel comfort. All these things are also non-physical, and they're also driving you. But you're not accepting that. You're not accepting that you just want to feel safe. You're not accepting you just want to feel loved. You don't want to just feel, you just don't want to, you don't want to feel, you don't accept the fact you just want to feel satiated. You think you need to create all these humongous things, all these commercials that you've seen. You feel like you have to manifest these commercials in order to access those emotions and those feelings. That's where the problem is. That's where the problem is. All these commercials that if I had this commercial, if I had this movie scene, if I had this music video scene, if I had this scene in a book, if I had this, if I just experienced these things, I'd be fulfilled. So the context of happiness, the context of fulfillment is not a straight shot to Hashem. It's through this whole maze, right? It's through this whole labyrinth of scenarios that you have to go through in order to be loved by somebody, right? You have to have your heart broken, you have to be this, you have to do that, you have to go through all these different things, you got to travel across the world, you got to do these things to be loved. No, just make shalom with the person in front of you, person you're married to, right? So that's that dynamic. Oh, you know what? Like in order for me to feel honor and a sense of respect and importance in the world, you know what? I got to make millions of dollars. I got to make billions of dollars. I have to have the biggest gold chain on. I have to have the biggest car. I have to this and this. You know, why did you go and struggle to learn a daf of Gemara? Or like a real machlokas between Tanaim, right? Why don't you go and figure out what's being said there, to be clear on just that aspect of that discussion, and then be able to go from that discussion into a much deeper analyzational process, which is in the deeper soul of what's being discussed by the Tanaim. Go through that process if you want to feel a process of a sense of honor and a sense of connection and a sense of pride. You would never be able to connect that to driving a Bentley or driving a Maserati or living in this big house in Beverly Hills. You will be still seeking truth. You'll still be seeking connection. You'll still be seeking purpose. You'll have a house, this huge house with a bunch of food in it, but it doesn't serve any purpose because you don't have a house. You don't have a mechanism of guest. You don't have a concept of Shabbat. You don't have a concept of Yom Tovim. So the money that you make, okay, fine, you bought a bunch of clothes and maybe you did the thing, but you aren't able to give tzedakah with kavana. You're not able to prepare for Rosh Hashanah. You're not able to build a sukkah on Sukkot and invite tons of people into it and provide meals and be a part of all those mitzvot. That's a reason to have a lot of money. Right? So the point is just saying that that promise of an intermediary between us and the light that we desire, this is the challenge. And this is what Rabbi Nachman is saying, that perception that we have to go through this labyrinth, through this obstacle, through these set of commercials in order to achieve this connection. You're saying, no, that's not going to be how people see it in the future. In the future, people are going to see that by connecting to this person and having octaves, knowing that we both have the same desire, that will be the new functionality of man. And that would not be business. That will be in this frame of octaves. This is this frame of unity, of oneness, right? That's what we're that's what we're talking about here, right? We're saying that place is where this whole conversation is going to, where this whole generation, that everything that you see is going closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to this. And so now we got to say, are we going to be a part of the people who are able to progress into this newer world? Are we going to be part of the people who get washed out? Are we going to be on the ark with Noah in terms of the ark of new ideas, right? Ark of new ideas, right? Or are we going to be the people who laughed at Noah and said, you know what? You're foolish. What are you talking about? You've been doing this for decades, bro. Nothing's happened. No floods came. So what are you talking about? He says, no, it's going to come, I promise you. So now we're saying that we're going through a shift where now automation technology, artificial intelligence, robot technology, global outsourcing has now shifted human labor, and it's made it almost obsolete right in front of us right now. There's McDonald's right now. When my parents were growing up, it was like having a job at McDonald's during the summertime was like a cool thing. And, working at a supermarket and bagging groceries, people learned how to do business like this. Paper routes, how many billionaires, Warren Buffett said he started off with a paper route. And it's just like now we have drones. We have robots that'll drop that newspaper off. And in fact, you don't even need the physical newspaper because now everything's digital on your internet, on your cell phone, on your pocket, on your watch. There's McDonald's now that are completely functioned by all computers. You order your Happy Meal, boom, 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 they package everything, you're out. Less error. Instead of having 20, 30 people working in a place, you have 2 people that are managing the technology. So what we're saying now is like, it's not just like a grandiose, nice idea that, yeah, we got to look into the future. We got to build into, no, this is right now. This is life and death. Either we're going to change the way that we see ourselves or we are going to be left behind. It's happening now. The whole world is rebuilding itself now. This is a sense of urgency you needed to propel yourself. Now, Elon Musk, for example, he has this big story and he says, you know what, artificial intelligences are going to be eventually going to supersede us and they're learning all of human thought and they're going to be able to do more than that, some other type of stuff. But what Elon Musk doesn't know about the sod. And he doesn't know that mankind has the ability to achieve the ultimate levels of consciousness, right? A consciousness that is so nano that is beyond anything computer. We are the computer. The computer is expressing our intelligence to us, right? We are in command of this reality, right? This is who we are. But the problem is the society that we've been raised in has taught us the opposite of ourselves, right? And so because of that, we're scared of things that we are creating. We're scared of things that are projecting our intellectual capacity. When I pick up my cell phone and I talk to someone who's in a different part of the world, that is an expression of the capacity of my brain, of my intellect, that I could talk to people. Yes, I have a device, but I created the device, or my kin created the device. So this device that I'm using to talk to someone across the world is just an intermediary for me expressing this thought power that I have in this physical world. This is how powerful we are. what we see is a projection of our consciousness. This is where we're at. So Hashem is getting us used to that idea by pushing us further to stop thinking in the frame of labor. Rabbi Shimon, when he brought the Zohar down, him and his son, they buried themselves underground. Their physical bodies were not there. It was all intellect. It was all mind. It was all or, pure light. And they received that, and they brought it down through dot. But it wasn't anything physical. It was in the age where it's just intellect, thought, in connection to nature, to self, to God, being able to be aware of the trees and the flowers and the grass and them breathing and being alive and that functionality and being aware of nature to such a level that all the secrets of reality are clear to you. And then you read the Torah, you read the Pasukim, and you're like, oh, this is what it means. This is where we're all going. The Zohar, the teachings, the levels that our Siddiqim have reached of clarity, this is where we're all going. This is the arc that we're on. So we have to reprogram ourselves and be open and use the quantum abilities of our intellect and our imagination to access greater levels of our self-revealment. This is what we have to do. And this is the work that we have to do. This is the Torah. This is what we call Judaism. This is what it is. It's preparing our souls, our existence for the next millennium. It's not just here to be a good person and not go to hell, right? As the other nations have contaminated, many of our messages. No, we are going to another millennium. I could even bypass death, as Eliyahu Navi and other great people. They surpass death because none of us actually die. We just fall into a state of consciousness connected to death, but then we're going to fall out of it when Mashiach came, and we're going to come back to the ultimate consciousness, and that's called the resurrection of the dead. We're preparing ourselves for higher realities. When Mashiach comes, we're going to crown Mashiach, but this is the 6th millennium. There's a millennium after that, where we're going to put a crown on the Shekhinah. It keeps going. This thing is far. But we are in a limited state of consciousness, so we're thinking, hey, we're going to get old, we're going to die. We've bought into the Social Security narrative that you work so many years and then you get on Social Security and then you kind of vacation and then eventually you die peacefully. This is the world of Malchut has shaped our reality of how we see the world of lack, the world of incompletion, the world where there's a sun and then there's a world there's a moon, right? The Zohar says at the end of the days, the Beis Hamikdash is going to be rebuilt from Shemayim, and it's going to be 2 Beis Hamikdash, and there's going to be one in the supernal worlds and one in the lower worlds, but you're going to be able to see this kind of like linking between them. Because they're one. So I guess you go in, you do coronas, you go up some elevator, who knows? I don't know what it looks like. Maybe like raindrops become like, ladders, things that we just walk up, right? We got to be able to imagine something new and be safe with that. Be safe that our souls are destined for another millennium, right? That we're going to continue on this, no matter the concept of death and no matter what it looks like. This is just an aspect of the total picture of existence. And the key is to be the people who are the ones who are the kalim of Hashem's Kedusha, that they're with Hashem's Ratzon, that they are Hashem's Ratzon. These are the people, the holy people, the holy souls that will continue on forever. So this is the picture Rabbi Nachman created. How do we get there? How do we get there? That's what we're working on now. Last class, we talked about this idea of, the cultivation system of our daily structures being based around this concept of not being late, right? And we talked about this idea of being late and waking up in the morning and having to go to school and watching our parents having to run to work and our neighbors going and all this traffic and everyone not wanting to be late, and how that concept shaped or shapes an entire generational way of thinking. Everybody's at, they showed the picture of LeBron James winning the scoring thing, right? Got the most points ever NBA basketball player, score. But they showed a picture of him, and they showed a picture of Michael Jordan, I think it was in 1996, at the NBA Finals, and it was the same type of an angle, and it showed the backdrop of the crowd behind the basketball hoop, right? And so during the time of Michael Jordan, everyone's watching, right? Everyone's standing up, like what's about to happen? He's about to win the whole thing. And they showed this thing with LeBron James in 2023, everyone's coding cell phones, right? And you get to see the difference of how just a technology changed the whole experiential feel for people watching a basketball game. That's just watching a game. So if we could see that over there, imagine all the other influences that have happened, right? And so when we talk about living in a world that's been scared of being late, now we're saying that world doesn't exist anymore, right? We're saying that you got to create your own connection points. You have to create your own structures because you don't have a boss anymore, because your boss now doesn't need you, because whatever brand you help him build, he can function much of that now through, social technology and artificial intelligence. So he doesn't need you anymore. So now you have to become like your boss. You have to create your own thing. And so how do we get to a place where you feel worthy from leaving the stage of being an employee, being at the stage of being a resume, the stage of being a college degree, from these different perceptions of identification that comes through the working system that we're a part of. How do we get there? So the concept of I'm late is really an analytical tool to see how society is structured, how all of us have been taught to work on this clock and to function on this clock and to live in this clock. And if we're not on this clock, we're bad people, we're tardy, we're bad students, we're bad employees, we're worthy of being fired. And if we're fired, we may end up becoming homeless and die a terrible death, the opposite of Social Security. So you got to be on time. You have to be trained this from the moment you enter an institution and participate, which is school, preschool, kindergarten. Your parents have to drop you off at a certain time because the lesson's going to start at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. You got to be there. And if you're not there, it's problematic. It's very problematic. And so we have to do something about it. So that's what we're holding at. How do we get there? So in this exact discussion, we're going to talk about something that's very controversial, things that people are very charged about, and it's the central point of battle when it comes to the new era of me becoming a brand, me being able to take my life and my experiences and commoditize it. These dynamics, right? This, what we're going to discuss is the core of that. And the core of this conversation is, why am I ashamed? Or why am I ashamed for self-promotion? Right? Because now everyone else is making tons of money, right? All the big guys, the big brands are all making big money using their images, their brands that they've spent all this time, and they've had copywriting laws and this and all these things to protect who they are. And then I come along, or you come along and say, you know what, I'm a brand too. And I have my own ideas, and I have my own content, and I have my own vision. And people say, you can't do that. You're not allowed to be a brand. You haven't worked hard enough for that. You hear the language? You haven't worked hard for that. Work hard for that means you did not go through the protocol system that we were told we were supposed to go through in order to achieve this level of recognition, self-recognition. You needed to go to Cambridge, you needed to go to Harvard, you needed to go to Yale, you needed to go to Oxford, and then you could say that I am smart. You need to have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD. Then you could say, I am educated. And if you don't have those things, you are an imposter and you are wrong. This is the training process, right? And where did we get to that point? Since we were kids, we got report cards. Report card thinking. I think we talked about it in last lesson as well. But this idea of report card thinking is saying that I gave my power of my self-definition of who I am, I gave that power away to someone else. I did it. I was a kid. I didn't know. I had parents. They're holding by the same thing. They gave away their power too. And so did my neighbors, and so did everyone else. So I gave away my power of my self-identity to this third party. And this third party created their own mechanism of judging who I am. And not just me, everyone else around me. And we all just accepted it. And if you tried to go against it, they will tell you something's wrong with you. And now, over the last 20, 30 years, they will start drugging you. If you think differently as a person, right? If you have a different idea, you will be publicly shamed. And I'm not talking about cancel culture. I'm talking about since the beginning of people inventing things, right? Like just people inventing things was such a huge controversial change in it was such a huge controversial change in the world that, there were people who were shamed. There were people who were put out of business. There were families who were ostracized just because of invention, just because of people thinking differently. There's people who owned a lot of businesses in America who shaped our education system and said, hey, I need these type of workers for my businesses. This is the system we gave our power away to. There's nothing about it's holy. Nothing about it's about enriching your life. It's only about your ability to be productive for some landlord who owns property and industry on that property, on whatever he owns, on that domain, whatever. This is the whole thing. And I hope that I'm bringing this up, and I hope you're getting somewhat disgusted to see like, wow, but you shouldn't be disgusted. You should say, this could be a Bereshit moment for me. Where it's like, you know what? I'm letting go of all these things about myself. Even the things I think I'm not good at or whatever, it's irrelevant because all those things are based around industry. So if I wake up in the morning and they have this term called organized. Okay, so you're organized. But what does that mean? That means that you fit into a structure of mode of living that allows you to be the best worker for their system. It's not something that's connected to the totality of who you are. It's not connected to everything that you're about. It's connected to someone else's idea. It's like sometimes you hear about these parties. You hear about these parties, and people have a party. It's called they have an all-white party. Or we used to have like in school, we would have different themes, like parties or whatnot, like a Gatsby party and different things like this. People would dress up, whatever. But the thing is, it's saying that if you came to that party and you weren't dressed in all white, or you weren't dressed in like some particular type of costume, you didn't fit into the party. You were like not in the theme. It's almost like better you weren't there, right? You're messing up the flow. Everyone's in a mindset. Right? And so now you go through this is what the world tries to convince us about our uniqueness. here's a special party, here are the special people, here's a special house. If you want to be a part of it, you have to dress this way. And if you don't dress this way, you can't be a part of it. So us and our limited intellect about life and reality, we see that and we're like, oh, wait, if I don't fit into the party, that means I'm not important. I'm not a part of life. Everyone wants to wear white. I feel like wearing yellow. Why do I have a desire to wear a different color? I should just think like I should wear white like everyone else. What's wrong with me? This is the life of a real creative person. This is a struggle they had to overcome. Anyone who's created any innovation in the world has thought differently since they were born. And it just, this one particular area was a way for them to express it. But they had to overcome this lack, this false perception that just because there's the party and he says, oh, everyone's wearing white, and just because we come in wearing yellow, we still fit in. And we're still important. And the fact that we're wearing yellow is probably going to create more discussion, and that white party may turn into a yellow party, or may turn into an orange party. And all of a sudden now everyone's expanded and we're thinking about all these different types of parties. But the fact that we limit ourselves and our individuality, we never bring that to the discussion. And therefore many people live very painful lives where they're not able to express who they really are, where they're not able to express what they're really about. Right? And who wants to live a life like that? Nobody wants to live a life like that. We're here to do extraordinary things. Even if it's like you have a piece of pizza, right? And you eat that pizza, and this time you eat a pizza in a way you never ate it before, because you think about all the things that are connected to bread and all the things that are connected to the cheese and all the things that are connected to the peppers and the olives and this and the tomato sauce and all these different things and all the colors and what these colors represent, and the tomato sauce being red and the cheese being white and the hesed and gevura, and you have the green olives connecting us to maybe bina, it's just all these things, and now you're connecting to God through this process we call eating. But we should have these experiences all the time. Our lives should be extraordinary. They should not be in the mundane. They should be connected to the inner essence of this life that Hashem. They said when Hashem, the Tanya speaks of this, is when Hashem breathed life into man, they asked the question, what does it mean he breathed, Hashem breathed? It means the inner essence of Hashem is what created the neshama of man. The inner essence, not the external parts. The inner sense, that's the breathing, the breath into man. And so that idea of that inner essence of life, that is the tree of life. That's the Etzachayim, right? That's the tree of going against gravity at all times, connecting to all the levels, all the names of God, everything that exists that's good for us is all there. So this idea of self-promotion, this idea of self-actualization is not a part of the system. It's not a part of a system that's there to take people and organize them to apply themselves to a workforce where they receive money. Right? So let's look how that works. Let's look at school. What happened to the kid who was the loudest? What happened to the kid who asked the most random questions? What happened to the kid where it was hard for him just to like sit down for like 8 hours? Right? What happened to those kids? Those kids are ostracized. Those kids are put in detention. Those kids are put into the back of the class. Those kids are punished. The kids with the most active minds are punished because we're creating the thought of conformity. If you're different and you act different, you will be punished. So your goal is to act like the collective. This is the society that we're in. Your job is to act like the collective. Right? And if you don't think like the collective, Something's wrong with you. You're not allowed in the party. You have to think like the collective. That's your job. Going outside of that is usser. This is how they think. So now we've been training people like that for how long? Since the beginning of industry in North America, we've been training people in that way. Since the Industrial Revolution. Now we're in the 21st century. Hundreds of years have passed. And now we're saying, you are the brand, you standing out, you being the most unique, you expressing yourself, that's the new industry. Everything that you were taught in school, we're now telling you the opposite now. We're telling you the opposite now. We're saying, no, it's actually, what makes you different is what gives you the ability to be most successful in the marketplace. It's the more unique your outlook is, and the more unique your ideas are, the more valuable they're going to be to a global marketplace. The uniqueness itself is what makes you different. It's not the conformity. Conformity doesn't have any value here anymore. It doesn't have any value for you. To conform has no value. Conformity has no value for you. What happened? You think about, when they started to change the segregation laws in the South, and you think about like those the thinking process of the white people who lived in the South, and what they were thinking when they said blacks are going to now be able to go to the same schools as your kids, right? Like it's easy for me as an African American to be defensive and say, oh my God, like why would you have a problem with that? What type of evil you have in you? But let's look at it from their end. Let's look at a society that was cultivated on their superiority, right? A society that was cultivated from them leaving tyranny and finally being kings and queens themselves, right? Where the guy who was a nobody has his own land in America. And now he even has his own slaves. And then he loses his slaves. And the slaves become free. And then time later, now the slaves are now the equal status as you. You're learning at the same places your kids are learning at. Your grandparents were told that these people weren't even fully human when they came here. And now you're telling me that my daughter is going to be sitting next to this heathen that you told me about, the person you said is cursed by God, and now he's going to be sitting next to my daughter? He may rape her. I got to stop this by all means. This is where the white supremacists, this is what they've been taught to think in America. We don't have compassion for them because we're on the other side and they hate us. But this is what they've been told. They've been taught this. Their whole self-esteem, their whole existence is based off of these lies that have been told to them. And then now they got to deal with school integration. This is exactly what we're dealing with right now, where we're telling people that they are brands, when we're telling people that their lives and their life experiences is their most important commodity, and social technology and building communities and alliances on this international platform is where their parnasa is going to come from. Only from their uniqueness. This is the same radical thought as we had back when Blacks integrated into schools. To the point, if people see you promoting yourself too much, or you're feeling yourself, or you see yourself in a certain light, and it hasn't been christened by the institution system, you are shamed, you are attacked, you are bullied, and you're told how wrong and how egotistical and how narcissistic that you are. And this is the challenge. We live in a society that is based around our ability to integrate into the collective, and we're merging into a world now where the individuality is the access to a new form of freedom and wealth. That's what we're saying. This is the battle. This is the struggle. This is what we have to really cultivate our minds to be able to understand and to communicate to ourselves when we're on this process. Because if we feel insecure about that, if we don't feel that we are worthy of this, if we don't feel that we think it's somebody else, then we don't realize that the message that we have received is directly from God. God has given us a message to go out and to create, to build, and we call that dreams. I have my dreams. Where do you think that comes from? That is Hashem speaking to you in your ear. And you have no choice but to go out and manifest that reality, or you're going to suffer, because now the stakes have got so high because we're so close to Mashiach that now Hashem is removing us to even be in a place of labor anymore. Hashem has removed labor because he wants us to elevate our consciousness. Now we're in a reality of only consciousness. It's only consciousness now. And this is the reality that Hashem has created, that it's only consciousness now. There's no more labor. There's the artificial intelligence. Everything is wiped out. Labor is consciousness. With Rabbi Shimon in the cave with his son, with a physical body, has no value in this world, only the intellect, only the mind, only the navigation system of our sages. This is all we have now. So Elon Musk only has the level of a soul at nefesh. But you know what? Me and my fellow Yehudim, we're holding by ruach, neshama, chaya, yakida. We have all 5 levels. So as we use less of the body, the more we could use our intellect, more we can score higher. You know, they talk about some righteous people, they're only intimate on Shabbat with their partner. And you think about, like, where does that come from? What's that idea? Okay, Shabbat's holy, I get it. It's Odnek Shabbos, it's a mitzvah, I get it. But it's something more than that. That when people are connected to these levels of the dimensions of their soul, that experience of intimacy is something that's far above the bedroom, right? The process and the pleasure is allowing them to access the revelation of higher worlds of consciousness. They're thinking about unity. Most people, when they're intimate, they're thinking about who can get to their final destination first. That's it. This is it's a track meet, right? But the spiritual dynamic of Hashem's light and the Shekhinah that brought people like Moshe Rabbeinu into this world came from the consciousness of 2 people that had something much greater on their mind, much greater in their reality. And so from that place, although they could have intimacy during the week, they wait for Shabbat, because that what they would have gained during the week is nothing compared to all that strength being expressed on Shabbat. All that power, all that co-op to go up higher and higher and higher that they could save during the week to reveal on Shabbat is the level that suffices the level of need for their soul, right? So we are working towards getting to a place of higher understanding of reality and understanding that the personality that we're discovering now is a gift from God. That we live in a society that's empty. That we live in a society that doesn't give us all of our needs. That we live in a society that gives us direction, but it's not really what's going on, right? That we live in that society. Because now through this society and this Torah that we're learning, that we'll be able to navigate through this world and utilize the emptiness and the lack to elevate us to a higher level. And that's where we want to be. And so I'm going to leave you with a story that I think sums up a lot of what we're discussing as we build, because this is a journey, and we have to turn this into a book, obviously. It's not enough just to put this on YouTube. We got to turn on the manuscript, and we have to go and teach this new era. We have to teach this new era. We have to allow people to see what's around them. It wasn't until Adam Rishon came into the world that the trees blossomed and the rain came from the sky and the grass grew. Everything was in a potential state. So in that same way, we are acting as Adam Rishon for our generation. We have to let people know what world we're actually in and the potentials that are all around them and how to access that potential. This is what we have to bring to the world, is this understanding. So there's a story, it's a famous story in the Gemara, and it's about a guy, I think it's in Rosh Hashanah, I'm not sure. Please don't quote me on that. Felt good to say it though. But the point is saying that there's a story about a guy who for literally for weeks he can't sleep. He's having the same, this dream over and over again. And he can't sleep, it's driving him crazy. And so someone gives him the advice and says, hey, you know what? You should go to Eretz Israel. There's a lot of people who can help you there. So he goes to Eretz Israel, he travels there. And so while he's here, he meets with 22 different dream interpreters. Each dream interpreter gives him a different dream. Every one of the dreams that were interpreted manifested exactly the way the dream interpreter said. And so the Maharal goes in on this particular Gemara and he talks about it and he says, hey, you know what? There's 3 types of dreams. There's the dreams that we have, that are just like, when you're sleeping, you have like this vision, you're in the water, you're over here, you're walking down the street, you're talking to somebody, whatever. He said a lot of those are subconscious thoughts that we had during the day that we're expressing while we're sleeping. And he says, but there's a higher level of a dream, which is a dream that's a longer storyline that actually you're going through different experiences. And you wake up and you're like, whoa, I thought that was real. And he said, those dreams, there's actual messages in them. And he said, there's another type of a dream, which is the highest level of a dream, which is a dream Minei Shemai. And this is a dream like Yosef Atzadik. When Yosef Atzadik received this dream, it was prophecy, right? And that's what's going to manifest. We've had dreams like this, that we had dreams and they manifest. But the point is just saying that there's the idea that we have subconscious desires, right? And these subconscious desires are constantly going through us all the time. And so the challenge is being able to understand that when we're a young kid and we're full of desires, and much of which are very subconscious desires, right? Because we're not we have full dot to be able to understand like what we're thinking and what's going on. The world starts shoving all these things down our throats. Who we are, what we should be, what success is. So you ask the kid, what does he want to be? I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a basketball player, I want to do this, I want to be a surfer, whatever. But these are things that he or she has been given throughout their life that has told them that this desire that you have, this is the best way to express it. The society that we live in is a dream interpreter, right? They interpret our dreams for us. And what we're talking about now is taking the power of taking and reinterpreting dreams ourselves, taking that power back and saying that, hey, the way you interpreted my desire when I was younger does not fit for the person I am today. And that interpretation that you gave me does not fill the needs of my soul, and it does not guide me on the correction of my soul. But it's okay, because now that I have the truth, which is I have the ability to discover what my true desires are, and I have the ability to express what those true desires are, the fake path that I was given before now becomes a pendulum for me to appreciate the goodness. I can now appreciate the sunlight because I'm experiencing dark. So I love the false path that I was given, because now, because of that false path, I have so much koach and strength in the right path. And the right path is for me to go layer by layer by layer and to reveal and to remove, to be able to reveal the greatness that's already inside of me. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to travel anywhere. The highest level potential is in the person who's speaking right now. I'm the person who needs to recognize that. Hashem sees the greatness. He created the greatness. That's how Hashem sees me. He sees my siblings and my wife and my friends and everybody. He sees us in our perfection. That's why there's so much sadness when we commit a sin and we go off, because we're so great. But we have to do our work, which is to remove those layers of perceptions through wisdom, through the study of Torah, through the actualization of my business model, of myself, of my connection to others, of the revealment of my uniqueness. Through this process, I will become complete. And I will become complete to be able to utilize this goof and this experience in its full capacity. But this is what we're going to. It's not just the concept of Rabbi Nachman saying, oh, everyone's going to be unified, but it's saying about removing all of the physical layers that we have that separate us from our greatness, from our collective unity, from our collective, dynamic of gaining from each other. And that's this idea of a new economy. It's a new way of receiving, right? That's what we're saying. There's a new way of receiving. And that new way of receiving is past the dollar bill. It's past the cash. It's past the ability to go out and acquire and shop. It's past the ability to go out and acquire entities. It's past that. It's a connection to total connection of oneness of everything, of everyone, from nature, from human, from angelic to Hashem. Everything is one, everything is Actus. And this is the economy that we're building. It's a new way of receiving. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.